When people talk about change, you know what I feel they don't talk enough about? Your brain is literally addicted to your old self. Let's talk about it. Part 5 for why your future is hidden in your habits. When most of us think about the word addiction, we think about substance abuse, things like food, people who are addicted to all sorts of things. Use your imagination. Very rarely do we talk about our addiction to our emotional default. Yes, you have an emotional default. It's the feelings that you go to when you are experiencing things that are possibly stressful, where you feel like you are possibly in danger, possibly being threatened. Every survival emotion that you have conditioned your body to get used to whenever things trigger you in your reality. Now, as a human being, you were designed to feel the entire spectrum of emotion. The problem is when you react for long periods of time, and let me tell you why. Emotions are chemical reactions that take place in the body. When you feel stressful, your body begins to produce sensations, and those sensations are what we call feelings. And those feelings actually produce chemicals. Your body's like its own pharmacy. It knows naturally how to protect itself. And so if you are feeling any kind of sense of danger, it doesn't matter what actually triggered it. What matters is you're reacting. And that is producing a chemical reaction in your body. Now, what do we know that stress produces? Stress produces cortisol. That is the stress hormone. And cortisol is not something that should be pumping through your body for long periods of time. Cortisol is something that your body should produce in addition to things like adrenaline that will help give your body enough energy to get out of danger. Why? Because when you are stressed, you are in a state of fight or flight. That's when your blood starts pumping, your heart starts racing, and your body's trying to conserve enough energy so that you can get out of danger. The problem is, we find ourselves in a state of fight or flight with everyday issues, with dynamics and relationships in our lives, with circumstances that aren't necessarily dangerous, but for some reason we perceive them as a threat to our well-being. Now, the old version of me would have been in fight or flight if I got a bill, if I found myself losing control or not being able to predict what was next in certain circumstances, and the list goes on. Your girl lived in a state of anxiousness. And it wasn't until I learned about what I was actually doing to my body by living in that constant state of fight or flight that I decided I needed to do something different. In fact, my body actually forced me to do something different. When you are constantly in a state of not being at ease, a constant state of fight or flight, you have a mind and a body that is not at ease, and that is exactly what dis-ease means. If you have developed a habit of being this version of you who is constantly in a state of fight or flight, if you're constantly triggered by this or that, or you're just processing in a way where you're constantly depressed or even anxious, listen, you have to learn to break the habit of being yourself. If you live in a state of fight or flight for long periods of time, you will condition your body into a destiny of disease. High blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, all sorts of things. A lot of those things can be linked back to how we exist emotionally in our bodies. And talk about living in a time and space where stress is almost the default. It's kind of hard to even clock when you're stressed out because so many of us have grown addicted to those hormones. Yes, we're addicted to the stress hormones because if you give your body a taste of that often, it will grow a natural addiction to it. And so even when you try to stop the reactions in your body, you will be subconsciously still reacting because your body has its own memory. It is the memory of the conditioning that you've done so far unconsciously to your body. And let me tell you how deep the addiction can go. Sometimes you might even be telling yourself, I'm not going to freak out, I'm not going to freak out, I'm not going to freak out. But your body has such a strong memory bank that it'll be like, I think we freak out right about now. For some of us, it's literally like our body is going through withdrawals from that chemical reaction that those emotions produce. You can even change the circumstance. You can change the characters in your reality. But if you are addicted to the emotions of your past, you will recreate the same scenarios for yourself because of your emotional addictions. Y'all, when I learned that, it was over. Learning how to break the habit of being yourself. And as I mentioned in my last video, I love Dr. Joe Dispenza's teachings on breaking the habit of being yourself and becoming supernatural, because never before have I ever experienced teachings that give me the blueprint to literally change how I exist in my mind, my body, and in this experience that we call reality. Now, if you're someone who keeps attracting the same experiences, stay tuned for part 6, where I'll talk about how to change your energy. I don't know who needs to hear this, but this is your reminder, and you got this.